Go ahead and call this meeting to order. But before I do that, I would like to announce that Mr. Lee is not present this evening as he is out of town. But he will be participating in the meeting via a conference line we have set up in the boardroom. So when he hasn't called yet, so there might be a bit of interruption, and we'll just go ahead and pick up the line when he comes on in. Okay, thank you. So I'd like to welcome all of you, and I'd like to see if I could call on Susan Swinburne from the Torrance Foundation to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Good evening. Please stand and place your right hand over your heart. Join me in saying, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hi, how are you?
Good. All right, so I'd like to call on Dr. Mannon to amend the agenda.
Madam President, we are requesting an amendment to 19.33. The attachment to that item, which are district gifts to the district, was inadvertently left off. There are copies for members of the public and also board members. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Mannon. All right, so I need a motion and a second to adopt the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Okay, thank you. Motion carried. All right, so I have a report of closed session items. I need to read a statement here. Okay, so the Board of Education in closed session voted unanimously to approve the following administrative appointment. Jerry Gargis, Coordinator, Intervention and Instruction, 2012 days, effective July 1st, 2016. Jerry comes to our district from Los Alamitos Unified School District, where he served as principal of McGaw Elementary School since August 9, 2013. He previously served as administrator, curriculum and instruction at Westminster School District for the 2012-2013 school year. Principal at Schmidt Elementary School from August 2007 to July 2012. Assistant principal at Johnson Middle School in Westminster School District from August 2005 to August 2007. And a grade 4 and 5 teacher at Nueva Vista Elementary School in the Los Angeles Unified School District from March 2001 to July 2005. Jerry received his Bachelor of Arts in Physical Education, Adult Fitness from Marshall University, Huntington, West Virginia in 1993, his Master's of Science in Physical Education Sports Management from Marshall University, Huntington, West Virginia in 1995, and his Doctorate of Education, K-12 Leadership in Urban Schools from the University of Southern California, Los Angeles, California in 2006. We would like to welcome Jerry Gargis to our district. Would you like to say a few words? Welcome.
Thank you so much. Good evening,
welcome.
Board President Deutsch and board members, Dr. Mannon and members of Executive Cabinet. I'd like to thank Dr. Stowe and Dr. Kim for this fantastic opportunity. I'm thrilled to have the chance to support student achievement by working with teachers and principals and alongside Torrance's outstanding leadership team. Torrance has been a part of my family personally since I met my wife, Karen Howsky, 15 years ago. She's taught in the district for over 20 years. My children, Karin and Preston, both attend Anza Elementary and have benefited from the great teaching at that school. I'm honored to join the Torrance team and have the district be a centerpiece of my professional life as well. I look forward to many, many years of serving the students, staff, and community of Torrance. Thank you.
Thank you. And could we meet your wife and can she stand so we can meet her? Hi. Okay, great. Well, yes, a lot of doctors. Got a lot of doctors. Well, thank you again and welcome to our school district. Okay, I'd like to call on Dr. Dougal now for recognition.
Thank you, President Deutsch.
You're welcome.
We'd like to recognize the North High girls varsity softball team, which culminated an impressive and exciting season on Saturday, June 4th by playing the CIF Southern Section Division IV championship game. They won with the score on June 4th, Saxons 5, Charters 0. Overall, the record for the season for North High was 29 wins, 6 losses, and 1 tie. We are very, very impressed with their season. I'd like to call up Coach Miller, Dr. Richardson, and the team captains for a photo, please.
Can't all the girls be in the photo?
I think they're from the other school, from Torrance High. I don't know. I think they just wearing a CIF softball jersey.
And this is everybody that's here from North? Is this everybody? Okay. So make sure nobody got left out of the picture.
Hmm?
Okay, so we're done with recognitions. Okay, so then we're going to move on to staff presentation and information.
We don't have the other two?
No.
No. Okay, so we move on to the report from the Torrance Education Foundation. Susan Swinburne. Hello.
Hello again. Since it's the last board meeting of this academic year, I do want to take a moment and say thank you to everyone in front of me and everyone in the room and the rest of the district. This has been my first year with Torrance Education Foundation, and it's been really eye-opening and wonderful. So I just really appreciate all the support that has come from the board and the academic team and the teachers and our academic supporters on the campuses, our ambassadors on each campus, and the principals and everyone else for the efforts that our board and I have been making to bring Torrance Education Foundation to more people and for more people to support us so that we can support you. And in that regard, I want to announce this evening that Torrance Education Foundation will be part on Wednesday of a statewide recognition day in Sacramento. It's the first ever California Nonprofit Day. That's a collaboration between the organization Cal Nonprofits, which is an organization of all not-for-profit organizations throughout the state, and the legislature. Thanks to the help of everyone in this room, and our hard work too, I will say, Torrance Education Foundation is being honored as the Outstanding Nonprofit of the Year for the 66th District. We've been named by Representative David Hadley, and I'll be there on Wednesday to accept that award, and I wouldn't be there without all of you. So thank you very, very much.
Oh, that's, congratulations. That's a great honor. Okay, thank you. So, and we're going to go ahead, and we don't have a representative from the Torrance Council of PTAs today. So we'll go ahead and move on to 9.3, which is the presentation of the proposed 2016-2017 Local Control Accountability Plan. Dr. Stowe.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Deutsch, members of the board. This is the third year of the implementation of the Local Control Accountability Plan and the LCFF, and we've gone through another thorough process this year in working with all of the required steps that are laid out in the legislation for the LCAP. And so Mr. Egan and I are going to go through this presentation tonight and share with you a little bit about the process and some of the timelines and things for us to come here on this night. So as you know, the LCFF and the LCAP are linked to the district's budget. The LCAP outlines the different goals and actions and services that we will provide to students covering 8 state priority areas. The 8 areas are broken into 3 different categories: conditions of learning, pupil outcomes, and engagement. And so within each of the goals that we have designed and put together, we have multiple actions that fall within each of them. And so we'll outline some of them tonight. The document itself, along with the annual update, is about 50 pages, and so we're not going to go through every single one, but we are going to highlight one of the goals in which a large amount of our funding is being recommended. So this slide, we've used this in the past, and we've just updated the bullets. Throughout the process here, in step one, was the consultation with the local bargaining units. We had PTA, we had our parent advisory committee, we had different levels of school personnel. We had asked all the schools, all 30 schools, to meet with their site councils and representatives at their school sites to bring forward recommendations of things that they felt would be appropriate to put in the LCAP. Here we are in the spring of number 2. There is the Parent Advisory Committee. We met 3 times. This is a board-appointed Parent Advisory Committee representing all pupils, the free and reduced, the low-income students, the EL, English learner students, as well as foster. So we had representatives from each of those groups on that board-appointed committee. We also shared this and got input from our English learner advisory committee at the district level, through the Spanish-speaking parent night, as well as the DELMAC conference that we held. Any written feedback that we did get was responded to in writing by Dr. Mannon. And here we are, June 20th, at the third ball there, where this is the public hearing that we'll have tonight following my presentation. And then what we will do on the 27th is come forward to the board asking for your approval, because the presentation and then the adoption of the LCAP need to happen in 2 separate meetings. So with the LCAP, we have identified 5 goals. If you remember, 2 years ago we had 24 goals. Last year we pared it down to 6. And this year, we combined 2 goals because they were somewhat duplicative. And so this really, having gone through this whole process for 3 years, has really allowed us to hone in on what is the most important thing for us to do as a district. And the LCAP, although it accounts for all of the expenditures that are included in the base grant, a big focus of this are the supplemental grant dollars. So we receive additional funding for every pupil who is either English learner, low income, or foster. And so the total this year is about $11.9 million that we're receiving in targeted funds. In addition to some carryover, we have about $15 million that we've allocated for supplemental services within the LCAP. And so our 5 goals, one relating to recruiting and retaining qualified teachers and administrators. Goal 2, implement effective, cohesive, and sustainable professional development. Number 3, ensuring that all students are successful in a rigorous Common Core and next generation aligned science aligned curriculum in the different subject areas. Number 4, implement comprehensive student intervention and support programs. And 5, improve parent outreach across TUSD in all schools and provide additional opportunities for parents to be engaged in their child's education. And so within each goal, we use a template that's developed by the CDE, California Department of Education, and go through and begin with identified needs. And so I'm going to walk you through the next 3 slides. The next 3 slides are a sample of the content that is in the LCAP. And so what we do, and we're asked by the template, but also it's a best practice, to identify the need that we have in targeting our funds toward these students. And so more and more, now that we're in the 3rd year of this, we have more quantifiable data that we can look at. The first year or 2, we didn't have a whole lot of numbers. We last summer for the first time got back our CASP, our Smarter Balance results, and so this summer we'll hopefully be able to compare those. Not hopefully, we will compare those. So One of the identified needs that we identify here in student achievement are the ELA and math met or exceeded standard levels. So we want to increase that percentage. We're also looking at, we know what our number is of students who are English learners and how they are reclassified on an annual basis. We also identified a need of the lack of a comprehensive intervention structure, K-12, to support underachieving students. We have made a lot of progress with regard to the UC A through G completion rate in the district in the last 5 or 6 years, and but know that that's still a need that we need to continue to focus on, and then we have our target population in honors and AP placement courses. These are our students who represent those 3 targeted groups, where we have 20% of them taking honors and AP courses, and we want that number to increase. And so these are just some of the bulleted identified needs and metrics that we identified within Goal 3. So Goal 3 states that all students will attain proficiency or better in the rigorous content. And to identify or to help address some of those identified needs, we have to hire people. And there are some big dollar figures here that that fall within this Goal 3, the actions and services. First and foremost, and this was included in our action plan last year, although we didn't act on it because we developed this year through Dr. Kim and a team of people, the RTI plan that we presented to you a month or so ago. So with the RTI plan in the LCAP.
Just so everyone knows, RTI for the public.
Oh, sure. It's response to intervention. Essentially, there are 3 tiers of supports where the first tier is really in the classroom. The Tier 1 support in the classroom needs to happen to make sure that students are being provided with rigorous academic instruction on a daily basis. And then when students aren't able to demonstrate performance at that level, then they move to Tier 2, which is maybe in the class or outside of class intervention to help them remedy areas of deficiency. And then finally, Tier 3 would be a small percentage of students who need maybe a different setting or additional time in different ways, instruction. And so part of what we identified this year, and Dr. Gargas was involved in the interview and selected. He is one of the administrator positions that's bulleted there, in addition to 17 full-time teacher positions for intervention at the elementary school. Beyond that, we're recommending in the LCAP another 0.5, so 4 total FTE at the middle school level, so a half of so 3 sections at each middle school for the other 4 FTE to make 21 teacher positions that we're recommending be added in the LCAP. And then in addition to Dr. Gargas, we're recommending assistant principal positions strictly focused on intervention and academic support and behavioral support at the high school, 1 assistant principal at each of our 4 comprehensive high schools, and 1 assistant principal at Arnold. Arnold is our 3rd largest elementary school, and they have 48% of their students fall in the targeted range. And so what we will be doing is pending board approval with this next Monday, is adding an assistant principal at Arnold Elementary School, and then funding it a third out of supplemental at each of the 3 elementary schools. So all 27 of these positions don't add any expenditures in the general fund. These are all supplemental fund expenditures. One of the rules of thumb that we've always had in this district is to maintain flexibility and not have more than a certain percentage of categoricals or additional funds identified for staffing. And so even with the addition of all these positions, we're looking about 40 to 45% of our supplemental funds are in people. The other 55 to 60% are in supports and services and contracts for staff development, substitute costs, those kinds of things. And so what we feel this does, it protects us in case of an economic downturn, right? And so
Excuse me, Dr. Stowe.
Yes.
There's a question, Mr. Steffen?
Well, when you're finished with this first bullet, I have a question. So, yeah, okay, good time. Well, first, I just noticed at the very beginning of Goal 3, and there's a statement there, it sounds very reminiscent of No Child Left Behind. And I was wondering if that statement is a mandated statement, or is that a district statement that all children will meet proficiency or better?
This is our goal.
Okay.
You know, we believe that all students can, with the right supports and instruction, attain proficiency or better. You know, this is meeting or exceeding the state standard for Common Core and Next Generation Science standards
And
once they're implemented.
And on the four, we've talked about the four assistant administrators at the high schools that we're adding that are going to be under you, I guess, right? Well, there you go. And I mentioned, we had talked about the site supervisors we had hired during the down cuts, or during the cuts to assist. Is there any overlap between the positions of a site supervisor at the high school and this new new assistant administrator at the high school?
Well, no, there's not. I'd like to first correct that Dr. Gargas is responsible for elementary, pre-K through 3 intervention, and so
this is not
that's where his focus will be. The three or the four high school administrators that we're recommending out of supplemental funding are strictly to provide and monitor and ensure that increased and improved services are being targeted toward those students. And so, no, there is no overlap with the site supervisor, who is a facility supervisor and make sure maintenance and work orders are followed up on. That's a classified non-instructional position.
Oh, okay, I forgot the classified thing. Okay, thank you very much. My apologies. Okay, thank you.
So that bullet covers a lot of personnel and is the bulk of the funding for Goal 3, or it's the largest expenditure in any of the goals in the LCAP. Additionally, we are doing a lot of extended learning time outside the school day, beyond the school day, before the school day, as well as summer. And a lot of those you know, the use of that facility requires additional maintenance and operations that are outside what's allocated generally for the base grant. And so, you know, we've been working with Dr. Stabler's office to kind of quantify what is that, and we know that that's an additional cost by having those campuses open in the summer, and so we're addressing that through the LCAP. And then finally, refining and supporting the single plans for student achievement. These are the site plans that are developed and approved locally by the school site councils every year. We do pass through $305 per targeted student to the sites. And so those schools need to account for and ensure through those processes at the local level that funding that they receive is principally directed toward the students who are targeted and underachieving. So that's a bulk of the work that happens in the summer and the fall, is that planning for how is that money being used to target students to improve and enhance services for those students. Within each goal, we also have expected measurable outcomes. So just how we have the identified need, and then we have the goals and actions, then we say, how are we going to measure this? And again, increasingly, each year we'll have more quantifiable data in which we can use. And so for this goal, directly tied to some of the things that I just talked about, our improvement in our CASP data, which is the Smarter Balance Assessment that all students in grades 3 through 8 and grade 11 take in ELA and math each spring. Maintain EL proficiency, include releveling and redesignation rates. We'll be identifying and continuing to monitor those. Implement our RTI plan and that is a significant responsibility on the shoulders of Dr. Gargas. Maintain or increase the percent of students graduating with UCA through G requirements, and then finally increasing numbers for students who are taking honors, targeted students completing honors and AP courses. So you can see how each of the goals, the 5 goals, we have identified needs, we have actions and services, and then expected measurable outcomes. So this is just a brief snapshot of some of what Goal 3 looks like, but there's more information in there and more goals within, or more actions within Goal 3 than what I've identified. That's just a sample of the process that we went through with all the different groups that we met with. So to address the single site plan, I'm going to have Mr. Egan come to the podium and go through those.
You just keep it, it's fine. Okay, good evening, Mrs. Deutsch, members of the board.
Good evening.
Thank you for having us tonight. Dr. Stowe was able to elaborate quite a bit on some of the very specific plans. I'm just going to kind of talk quickly about the process on how this then carries forward into school strategic planning. So in particular, as you mentioned before, you saw the acronym there, SPSA. That references the single plan for student achievement, which is listed up here. And it follows very much the same kind of format. We're going to help them set goals. They're going to align them to the various different populations of need and in the form of strategic actions. In addition, we always ask that they also consider their underperforming subgroups as well, because they can be very unique in different sections of our community, and so we want schools to recognize that we're fully in support of them addressing those needs, and that it doesn't just have to be one of those 3 identified state categories that we're given. Very important that they align to this district LCAP plan as well. So what you'd see if you did an analysis of each of the 30 school plans is that they too would have somewhere around 5 goals, and they'd be worded very similarly, although specifically tailored to their school and identified somewhat locally. If they're an elementary level as opposed to high school, some of those pieces of language there might look a little different. In addition, the plan itself, the LCAP, has 3 sections, and in particular you'd see in the first section some narrative that really details the process, who we communicated with. Dr. Stowe had the graphic earlier where you saw the 4 balls that kind of bounce through the process. That's put into basically a document embedded into this particular LCAP, where it lists the different events, where they occurred, when they occurred, and you can really see how inclusive I believe we are here in this district. It's not just 3 meetings with an advisory committee who've been appointed. It goes much deeper than that, and that's a place where you can see it. Section 2 is essentially the crux of the plan, and as Dr. Stowe laid out for you, the identified needs, those metrics that we look at, the statements of goal, what do we want to accomplish now that we see these things. And then, of course, the action plan, those steps that we're going to take to reach that goal, that would be listed there. So here's just a graphic for those of you in the back of the audience. A little bit hard to see just by the size, but you can see it's a very specific template that the state provides that we are to follow, and so we do. And one key element in here, though, is that what we're asking for tonight is for consideration of a plan that's for 3 years. And so you'd see in the graphic here in the middle of the page, it says LCAP year 1. And so that's really, what we want to look at is, year by year. This is an image from, looks like it's probably last year. So you could see it says 2015-16. So the actual plan that you have posted would, year 1 would include 2016-17. Year 2, the 17-18, so forth. So, we're having an opportunity here to really look strategically ahead, which also helps to guide our schools to really consider longer-term things that they want to work towards at their campus and not just 1 year at a time. Section 2 also includes an annual review of what we've done this previous year, or the existing school year. Timing is always tricky because we get data about this time of the year, but however, we're also required to write our plan and revisit the things that we've done and accomplishments that we'd hope to make prior to this point in the year. So It's better than in previous years when we were receiving our standardized test data in early September or late August, but still not quite enough time for us to really fully understand how did we do in reaching some of those goals. But this is a great opportunity for us to really illustrate to those members of the community, again, through a fixed template that the state provides, which is on the graphic here, that says what was our goal, what were those expected outcomes that we hope to accomplish, and then kind of moving over to the right of it, what were the actual outcomes? How did we do? And then listed below, what were those steps that we hoped we would take to successfully get to those outcomes? And then to the right, what did we actually do? What were those steps? Did anything look different? Included at the very bottom of that is also some narrative opportunity for us to express what we might do now that we know this information. So what are our next steps? And so this is really a great inclusive part of the process. Section 3A and 3B are the very end of the document, and this just provides the details, as Dr. Stowe was mentioning, of the LCFF supplemental portion of our district's funds. And this coming year, that grant is anticipated to be $11.985 million, as you see there in the first bullet. And what we thought would be particularly relevant to share with you is that we do assign about $3 million of that for school purposes. So that single plan process comes with additional support from us. And of course, we guide and monitor that process of utilizing those funds, but we do set aside money so that they have the opportunity then to embark on actions that would take place at the site level to support their specific needs for those students, of course, in alignment with the plan and the 5 goals that we have set. So our next steps, we're here tonight for the first. We'll be asking for consideration to authorize this plan next week, and then of course, once we get to that point, then what's due to the county is by July 1, that endorsement from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Egan. Okay, we have questions. Mr. Warmers.
Dr. Stowe, Mr. Egan, you guys talked about the fact that we're funding these positions through supplemental dollars. Having lived through the downturn 6 years ago, if we experience another downturn, and Dr. Mannon's projecting it, and he's never wrong, will we see a cut in the supplemental dollars, or is it going to be just general fund cut, or how do we going to?
We don't know. For many years in California, the reductions would only be made in the general fund and not categorical. Remember, that was the
Correct.
The method for budgeting. Once they figured out, meaning the assembly, figured out that they could make cuts in categorical, then they started also cutting categorical. So there's really no way that we really know today how in the future they might attempt to make reductions.
But if we're told that our supplemental funds have been reduced by 25% like we experienced in 2009, then we're going to have 25% less funds to fund the positions we're filling today.
Absolutely correct.
Okay.
Which is also why we're keeping that percent of people, full-time staff, paid at the 40-ish percent. So it's less than half. So 25% reduction might look like we keep all those people, but we don't do, as much sub-release time. Maybe the schools we don't pass along as much to the schools for their site usage. There's some other things that we, there's $7 million in there that are used for other things than full-time staff.
Okay, personally, I want to say thank you for that, having lived through the process of laying off hundreds of people, one of my very first meetings, so thank you very much for doing that. I've been saying now for years that we could hire 25 people and put them to work in the district office inside of a week, and 15 people out in the field doing the same thing, so it's nice to finally be doing some of this. It's nice to restore, so thank you.
Okay, Mrs. Reagans.
Yeah, I just had a question about the money that's being allocated directly to the school sites on a per pupil basis. We actually have asked, and I think been shown on a few occasions, how that money is being utilized and what the effectiveness of those expenditures are. Can we have that reported back to us too on a regular basis?
Yes, we can absolutely look at that.
Because that's a lot of money going directly to them that we're trusting them more or less to use in a sufficient way. And I know it's built into our school plans, and I believe that you folks do gather information, but it just doesn't get to us.
Okay, we'll figure out some way to report that back.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I don't believe we have any other questions. Thank you. All right, so we're going to go ahead and move on to 9.4, which is the report from the District Budget Committee, presentation of the proposed 2016-2017 budget. Dr. Stabler.
Yeah, let's let everybody
Oh,
go.
yeah.
Thanks for
All right.
coming.
Yes,
Congratulations,
congratulations
everybody.
again.
Think they figured
Well
it out?
I
done.
think so, yes.
Oh, man, it just all went away. There we go. Happy summer. I bet the old playing baseball or softball over the summer. Oh, there's Alicia. She was in the back, and we could have had her in the picture. Yeah. She was in the back.
Yeah.
Boy, that
That's more
emptied
like
the
it.
room. What,
Wow.
was it something we said?
Man, that emptied the room.
Is this a way to clear a room?
I don't know.
But
Yes. Don't
Yes.
don't
with
take
a
it
stapler or
personal.
budget, which word got him?
Yes.
I don't know, one of those two.
Or
Both in the
Anyway,
same sentence.
tonight we want to take the opportunity to give you information on the 2016-17 proposed budget. But before we do that, we would like to have Ms. Reagans and Mr. Steffen give a report of what we call our Budget Committee. It's a committee that we put together every year that includes board members and superintendent's cabinet to review the information that we'll be showing to the public later in this budget. So, Mrs. Reagans?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Stabler. Yeah, this was a sort of a new experience for me because I think, even though I've been on the board for a while, that I've never actually sat on this committee. So it's a new learning. I appreciated having that opportunity. The Budget Committee comprised of myself, Terry Reagans, and Mark Steffen down there on the end. Mark, you were there.
Out there.
And the Superintendent's Cabinet, which includes actually all the folks you see sitting up here, Dr. Mannon, Dr. Stabler, Dr. Stowe, Judy Chai actually is not here, Dr. Liberati, Dr. Dougal, and Dr. Kim, met to review the 2016-2017 budget. Judy Chai, the district's fiscal services officer, went over the assumptions that were used to develop the 2016-17 budget. You will see them actually in the presentation in a moment. A major difference from previous years, and this is actually something that we've kind of been going towards for a while perhaps, but have finally made the shift, is to move away from using the Department of Finance revenue percentage projections for additional funding of the local control funding formula, instead of using school services percentages, which is what we have done in previous times. So that will be significant to us. There is always somewhat of a discrepancy, and we think that actually probably DOF may be a more accurate representation. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. Included in tonight's budget presentation is information about the use of the increased supplemental dollars that we are getting, that Dr. Stowe mentioned, for specific site and program-based personnel, and the special education reorganization, the reestablishment of district-paid coaching stipends, and
Also in this, there will be a return of two classified positions that had been cut during the recession, the material support technician and human resources specialist, and the beginning teacher support and assistance and gifted talented person, did that, which would be the BITS and the GATE program, right? It was the recommendation of the committee that these positions and the programs increases be approved. The committee also discussed the specific effect of the budget. The district is in deficit spending in the budget year 2016-17, which is next year's budget, and the 2 out years. But for bookkeeping reasons or accounting reasons, that next year that is mostly primarily due to the one-time funds that we are expending, correct?
Correct.
All right. These future projections do not include any salary increases at this time, so none of the potential salary increases that any of the employees might get.
For the out years.
For the out years.
It includes
For
this
this
year.
It includes 1670, but does not include the next 2 years, okay. It was also emphasized that in the third year out, the budget shows the district will have a negative percentage for the reserve for economic uncertainties. It would be about 2.5% below. I think you're going to go over that, which puts us about 5% or so, or more, below the 3 that we need, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And that's pretty much the report from the Budget Committee, so thank you very much.
Thank
Any
you.
questions for the committee from the other board members?
No, I don't.
Okay, thank you very much. As I said tonight, I'm giving the proposed budget for 16-17 for the unrestricted general fund. And this budget is made up of assumptions, and those assumptions include the new funding formula, which is the local control funding formula and the local control accountability plan, and that it is in place. There is an increase expected in the base program for about $5 million, an increase in supplemental dollars of $2.1 million, for an increase in total funding of $7 million in the 16-17 budget. And as Ms. Reagan said, we will be using the Department of Finance gap percentages for these multi-year projections. One-time discretionary fund for 1670. This is the money that the governor has been giving to school districts in lieu of what we call mandated cost payments. And each year for the last 2 years, he's given us funds. Next year, he's giving us additional funds. And this year, it's $5.4 million. Prior year, that is available is $9.3 million, for a total available of $14.7 million. And in a later agenda item in discussion action, I will discuss exactly where those funds will go. And basically what we're talking about is a set aside for future use of $7.35 million and proposed expenditures of $7.35 million. What are the other assumptions? As the board is aware, as many people are, the legislature and the governor a couple of years ago decided to, well, they had to increase the district contribution to the state teachers retirement system and the public employees retirement system, because both systems were not bringing in enough money to pay for the expected retirements in a number of years. So each year we're getting an increase in those two accounts. This year's increase is costing the district $2.4 million. Additional position and restoration of stipends, which was already talked about, are in the budget for $1.3 million. We have the beginning teacher program support will be funded out of the educator effectiveness grant, so no set aside to general fund of $0.8 million. And then the GATE program, same as the 15-16 funding level, for $0.2 million. COLA, cost of living increase. This is what we used to, only thing we would consider when we were looking at increases to our budget. As you see 15-16, it was a 1.02%. For 16-70, as Dr. Mannon calls it, the uncola, because there is no projected COLA. You can see a very small increase in 17-18, and then a 2.42% in 18-19. This would be increased funding to our budget. But the majority of our new funding comes from the local control funding formula gap funding percentage. And what that means is, when they started the local control funding formula, they gave us money with the intent to bring districts up to the same amount of money that we got in 2007 with inflationary increases. So each year it's moving it closer and closer to that dollar amount. And that's the gap that we're closing. And you can see what the gap closures have been. First year about 52%. Next year about 53% of what's left they're going to be at. 17-18, hopefully they'll be up to 73.96%, and then the final year will be an additional 41.22%. You can also see what our average daily attendance is being projected to be for each one of those years. And as was mentioned, we used to use School Services of California, and you can see what their gap percentages are. So these gap percentages actually give us a more robust budget. That's the intent of changing.
Wow, big difference.
Assumptions, lottery, unrestricted. We don't see any real change in either unrestricted or restricted lottery funding. It will stay the same. You can see what the percentages, I mentioned earlier about STRS, State Teachers Retirement, Public Employees Retirement, how each year those are going up significantly. They used to both be about 8% when we started this, and PERS rate was about 9%. You can see what they're going up to. in the next 3 to 4 years, that's a lot of the new money that we're getting. That's almost 25% of the new money that we're getting under LCFF is now going to the PERS or STIRS increases. We will be talking later tonight about the salary schedule for this year and the increase that is included in the budget and going forward, but we have no salary schedule increases included in this budget for any of the 3 out years. So what does our budget look like? You can see what the revenue coming in is. And the reason 15-16, even though we talk about increases in the LCFF funding, you notice that 15-16 is higher than 16-17. That's because of that a significant amount of one-time funding that the governor put in the budget last year. It's about twice as much as what we're getting this year. Then you can see what the amounts are of the other 2 years. But at the same time, we didn't spend that money in 15-16, but it is our intent to recommend to you tonight that we spend the majority of those one-time funds. That's why you'll see that the revenue for the expenditures for 16-17 are significantly higher. As Ms. Reagan mentioned, we are deficit spending, or it was Mr. Steffen mentioned, we are in deficit this year. 15-16 we're not, but as you look at the next 3 out years, those are negative, so we are deficit spending. So what does our beginning fund balance look like? You can see 15-16, 16-17 goes up because of one-time funding, but then once that money is spent, the beginning fund balance goes down in each of the years. You can see what happens to the ending fund balances in each one of those years also. They also go down. Now, this is the one that Mr. Steffens was talking about when we get to the 3rd out year, 18-19. Our reserve for economic uncertainty starts at 21 million, goes down to 13, and as the board knows, it was your direction to Cabinet to bring that down to 3%. Look what we did in 17-18. 3.01%. So we've done what you asked us to do, which is to bring down that reserve, which at one time was significantly higher. If you remember, it was about 25% at one time. But your direction is bring it down, and we've done that with various primarily from bringing back personnel that was laid off during the Great Recession.
What is 100% in dollars for Torrance? Do you have any idea? I mean, you had mentioned earlier in the meeting that there's a very small line between 0.01 and falling into below 3%.
Right. It's 3%, as you can see, is about 7.2. So 1% would be about a little over 2 million.
I thought it was around 70,000.
Yeah, because it's point.
Oh, 70,000 for the 0.01. Yes.
Yeah, right.
So it's about, well, actually it'd be about 20,000 because it's 1% is about $2.3 million now. And so 1/100% would be about $23,000.
Okay.
Well, okay, just like, an average salary for, nobody makes just 23.
No.
So so it's like a fourth of one person's salary.
Correct. You can see what the percentages are, and then you can see where our reserve above or below 3%. The reason 3% is important is that's a state requirement for a district of this size that we have a 3% reserve for economic uncertainties. Now, what will happen is when this goes into Los Angeles County Office of Education, they will, in the letter that they send back to you, will recognize that 18-19 deficit, but at the same time, because of the history that you as a board have with them and the district administration have with them, they recognize that you will make the strong effort to take care of that reserve by 18-19, and that will be in their letter.
Can I ask a question before you move away from that?
Sure.
Did you say what happens between 17-18 and 18-19 that makes this happen? That makes the red,
Well, it's continued deficit spending.
yes, plus it doesn't, the Prop 30 funds?
Well, this includes Prop 30 reductions are in here in 17-18, depending on what year, there are various parts of Prop 30.
Yes.
And so this recognizes that Prop 30 will not be passed by the electorate. Correct.
So this is the worst-case scenario if there's not a continuation of Prop 30 as we know it.
Correct.
Okay.
And, well, that begs the question, if there is a continuation of Prop 30 as we know it, it may change, it may do this, how would that affect if things went on?
The answer to your question is we don't know.
Nope.
Because it has not been calculated.
It hasn't been
By the state.
calculated. It hasn't been calculated, and they haven't decided how they want to spend the money.
Right.
There's no requirement, because they are funding education, there is no requirement that they put all of that Prop 30 money back into education. So it depends on what the governor and the Assembly and the Senate feel is important at that time. It's going to be a political situation. Additional, under SB, what is called 858 requirement, this has to do with the requirement of school districts to set aside, that we cannot set aside more than 6% of our budget in a reserve. So we have to do a disclosure every year of our district reserves and identify any assigned and unassigned ending fund balances above the minimum reserve for above the 3%. So you will see in the budget that is presented to Los Angeles County, it shows we've identified particular areas, whether it's supplemental dollars, whether it's textbook dollars. There are a number of different things that you can identify as unassigned, as assigned ending balances, but that's a legal requirement that we have to do each year now under the new state budget. And here's the information, minimum reserve requirement, you see what it is, and the amount of assigned and unassigned ending fund balances each year that we would have to set aside. And you see what happens in 1819, it's zero because we don't have anything in that reserve for economic uncertainties. Remember, that's a key year, 18. Again, these are the areas how we set aside the reserve information, economic uncertainties, and then adult ed. We have money in that reserve this time. What's next? June 27th, you will consider this budget, and then the district budget revisions within 45 days after the state budget adoption. And they're supposed to adopt their budget by they've already adopted their budget. Now the governor has to sign it by June 30th.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Dr. Stabler,
Yes.
a question. Mr. Steffen?
Yes.
So I noticed the adult education reserve falls to it doesn't make the 3% in the year prior to ours.
Right. Basically what that is, if you remember when adult ed, when we were going through the Great Recession, adult ed was a Tier 3 project, which meant it was money that the district could assume.
Yeah. Nice way.
I said it nicely.
Phrased.
Assume. Now, what it is this money has stayed in that budget, but it no longer is in a special fund. Used to be you had the adult education fund. Now that money is part of our unrestricted, and it will be, the idea is in 17-18, it would go away with like the rest of the reserve.
Mr. Wormers?
Two questions. There was some discussion about SB 858 being modified, rescinded, thrown in the trash. Any progress on that?
Currently, there is a bill going through, and it's SB 799. SB 799 was the one that was negotiated last year and had quite a bit of support from at least the management associations, which would be AXA, CASBO, CSBA, PTA, a number of entities. But it got a lot of pushback from the unions, because it's the unions who don't want us to have a reserve, because they want us to spend the money on salary increases. We had been able to get a reserve. Right now, it's twice what our reserve requirement is, from 3% to 6%. We had gotten language in that you could have it up to 17%, which is a nationally recognized figure. We don't know where the state came with 6% or 3%, but this 17% is a nationally recognized financial amount that major businesses should have available in a reserve. Then what happened was near the end of the legislative session, there was new legislation that was kind of taken to the side, and they reduced it to 12% and a couple of other changes. That died because it had no support. That really went south. Now, SB 799 is out there again. Current language in it's going to be heard this Wednesday, and it has the 17% back in it. We're hearing again, and I think I send you a copy of a letter that maybe you might want to send to our representatives that talk about, leave the language as it is, because the new language, the new thing that's going on over on the side is again to bring that down to 12% and to take out a couple of, and not allow basic aid districts and small and charter schools to have the same flexibility that other school districts have. And at least my organization, CAVSBO, is totally against this proposed new legislation that's off to the side. Our recommendation is either support SB 799, or as Dr. Manna said from day one, repeal the whole, I was going to say DA something thing, but I won't say that.
Okay.
I'm going to miss you so much. I'm going to miss you so much. The second part of my question, you must have enjoyed this being the last budget presentation. One of the things that I'd heard about SB 858 from talking to my assemblyman, a Republican, was that a large quantity of school districts are opposed to it. It was like 80 or 90% of the school
we are.
districts.
Yes, no, 858 is in place. They're not proposing changing 858. What 858 is the requirement to provide information about what you do with your reserves. That's a new requirement within AB 1200. In our AB 1200 document, which is the budget document, there is a section where, and you see it up there, what are we doing with our reserve? That's what 858 is. It's SB 799 that, we would much rather have it repealed, but we know that's not going to happen. So what we're recommending is take 799 in its current form, which is a 17% reserve with basic aid districts being included and charter schools being included, get it through the legislature and have them pass it. We don't like the other bill that's being proposed off to the side to amend 799. That's what 80 to 90% of the districts are not in favor of.
Okay, I follow. All right, again, I'm going to miss you painfully, very, very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wait, isn't there something else we can grill him on? Come on. We're going to let him off the hook that easy?
Sure.
Julie Schenkel, outgoing president of Torrance Teachers Association. I'd like to make a point of clarification. The unions are not opposed to districts having a reserve. We never have been. We just believe that money that goes to school districts should be used to educate children and should be used to be spent in the classrooms. It's not just for getting salary raises. So if there's a rainy day fund at the state level, then why do we need an additional rainy day fund at the local level? And so that's the reason why, we believe that keeping it at the 3% is adequate. We believe that this money is given to us each year to be spent on educating kids, and that's where the money should be spent. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schenkel. Mrs. Reagans?
Yeah, can I build on that? So she mentioned the rainy day fund at the state level, but there are, actually putting money into that fund is somewhat controversial and difficult to meet the requirements to make sure that happens too, right?
They did, they funded it last year when they
Yep.
had excess
I
money.
know
They
that.
funded it again this year with $2 billion, put it in there. So that's $3 billion. and-
Statewide.
Statewide.
That's supposed to be a reserve for all of us.
And typically $3 billion for us would be about 12 million,
Yeah.
if we got it. But that's what I'm saying, there'd be a big question on that. But as long as there's extra funding, the governor is under the requirement that's there. They are mandated to put money into the rainy day fund, and they've done it for 2 years. I give them credit for that.
As long as he's governor, that will happen.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Stabler. I'd like to go ahead and move on to 9.5, which is the SEIU Local 99 initial contract proposal. And I have a response to that.
Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Hello?
Hi, Mr. Lee.
He's still there.
Okay. As you are aware, state law provides that we hold a hearing for public input regarding the SEIU Local 99 initial contract proposal before the board gives its initial response to the proposal. Copies of the proposal will be available to the public in all city libraries and in the Human Resources Department. Time for public comment on the contract proposal will be provided at the July 18, 2016 Board of Education meeting. Okay. Going to move on to 9.6, Torrance Unified School District Initial Contract Proposal to SEIU Local 99. As you are aware, state law provides that we hold a hearing for public input regarding the TUSD Initial Contract Proposal to SEIU Local 99. Copies of the proposal will be available to the public in all city libraries and in the Human Resources Department. Time for public comment on the contract proposal will be provided at the July 18th, 2016 Board of Education meeting. All right, so I move on to public hearing. Public hearing on the adoption of the 2016-2017 Local Control Accountability Plan. I'd like to now open the public hearing for any comments. Okay, seeing none. No comments. I'd like to close the public hearing on the adoption of the 2016-2017 Local Control Accountability Plan. Okay, I'm going to move on to the 2.2 public hearing on the adoption of the 2016-2017 budget. I'd like to open the public hearing for any comments. Okay, seeing none. No comments. I'd like to close the public hearing for the adoption of the 2016-2017 budget. So before I move on to the next part of our meeting, I would like to make a statement. My fellow board members and I have received communications regarding moving up the start of the school year into August. These communications pertain to when the school year should start and end. The district and the employee unions have enjoyed a good working relationship over many years. As you know, school finances can be strong or weak, depending upon the health of the California economy. Nevertheless, our district and all the unions have always reached agreements by working together. State law in California requires school boards to negotiate with employee unions regarding wages, hours, and working conditions. Included within the subject of negotiations is the school calendar, which includes the start and end of the school year. Part of the negotiation process is for both the school district and the employee unions to present their initial bargaining proposals at a school board meeting prior to the start of negotiations. Our board will be including the school calendar as a subject for negotiations with the employee unions. As part of this process, it is the responsibility of the parties to bargain in good faith over their proposals. Consequently, a school district employer cannot change the start of the school year without meeting and bargaining with its union partners. As a result, employee negotiations are a give and take process. Not everyone can obtain everything they would like. In conclusion, the district will bring to the negotiation table the school calendar and work with our unions to study the school calendar, including the pros and cons for starting and ending school earlier than has been the tradition here in Torrance Unified School District. Oral communications. The Board of Education welcomes input from the public. In order to discuss district business in an orderly manner for the privacy and safety of the speakers and to help staff respond more directly, the board policies require that public presentations to the board comply with certain procedures, including speakers to non-agenda items may address only items that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. Time allotted for such presentations is limited to 3 minutes. Total time allotted for public input on non-agenda items is limited to 30 minutes. A speaker may not relinquish her or his time to another. When addressing the board, speakers are requested to state their name, address the president from the podium, and adhere to the applicable time limits. Complaints against employees or students will normally be heard in closed session, and the district's complaint procedure should be followed before discussion with the board. The board may remove disruptive individuals and order the room cleared if necessary. Any person who willfully disturbs any public school meeting is guilty of a misdemeanor. I'd like to call on Jen Harris from the Behavioral Health Services, Inc. Hello, Ms. Harris.
Hi,
Hi.
thank you. Thank you all for having me tonight.
You're welcome.
I am Jen Harris with Behavioral Health Services, and I actually wanted to present to you all some of the things that we were able to accomplish this year with Torrance Unified. So I actually brought a lot of pictures and handouts for each of you.
Okay. Thank you. You can pass this down.
So with the handout, there are copies for every person around the tables. So I brought several different things. In mid-November, the board approved the choice program to happen within the secondary schools, and we're really excited about that. We had the program this year at 3 schools, Kashmir, Hull, and Jefferson. And I definitely want to thank the principals, Ms. Heinrich, Ms. Holmes, Ms. Gerges, because they really stepped up in making sure that we had space available to work with the students. And so one of the sheets has information about the choice program. I've included several pictures. So we have some pictures from Jefferson Middle School, the graduating class. We also have Kashmir. Their graduation was on May 23rd. And so the students within the program, they had an opportunity to learn about drugs, learn about real ways to reduce their involvement with drugs, and to make sure that they know real ways to say no to drugs. And so on the back, we have the whole middle school students. And so some of the pictures don't have all the students all the students in the pictures because they were unable to make the graduations those days. However, we graduated 97 students total, which was our largest class. And so that was really exciting. We engaged 56 students from Jefferson Middle School, which is our largest class ever. And so that was really exciting. And we also included an activity where the students had to come up with either some sort of event or activity that they would do. And Jefferson students actually wrote a play, and they performed the play on their campus during their blacktop assembly, which one of the photos is listed there. And then they also did it that night with some parents that attended the underage drinking town hall. So it was really cool. I also included a flyer that has more information about the choice program, just in case there are any questions or folks weren't aware of it. And then I also included something really cool. We just received funding from the county to have a summer program this year. So we're doing our Drugs Kill Dreams summer program. And so we're going to incorporate the choice program, but also have elements of physical activity, also including more detailed information about drugs and why students shouldn't use drugs. And then the students are going to be able to apply the things that they learn. So the program is actually going to begin on Tuesday, July 5th, and we're going to be meeting at McMaster Park every Tuesday and Thursday from 1 to 5 p.m. except for July 19th and July 21st. And we're also going to have a summer internship program where any students up to 5 that we'll select can participate in an internship program and develop those leadership skills and actually facilitate the workshops that the other students will participate in. And then the last thing, we had a youth summit on April 23rd at Torrance Memorial Medical Center. And so I just wanted to make sure you all had some of the photos from the event. We had a lot of students that came from throughout Los Angeles County, but we definitely had a lot of students that came from Torrance Unified, which we were really excited about. There were different activities the students were able to participate in, a lot of different workshops. And then at the end, the students who participated in the hip hop workshop and the Zumba workshops got up on stage and they performed what they learned. So that was actually really cool to see. And I just want to thank some of our sponsors, Kaiser, also Torrance Memorial Medical Center, and Panda Cares and McDonald's for the food. So thank you all.
Well, you're welcome. And we have a question. Mr. Wormers?
Yes.
I'm not familiar with behavioral health services. That's new to me, I'm
I
sorry.
probably should have said something about us. So we are an organization that focuses on drug prevention and also drug treatment services. We have an office located on Post in Torrance, and our main location, which is where I'm housed, is at our Gardena office. And so with the services we provide, we do have several different drug treatment services, whether it's residential or outpatient. And our service, we do provide free services. A lot of people qualify through Medi-Cal, or if we have fee-for-service programs as well for those that may not. And with our prevention programs, we are doing prevention in Torrance, Lomita, Hermosa Beach, Manhattan Beach, Redondo Beach, and Hollywood.
Very good.
Yeah, thank you. And my information is actually listed on the choice program flyer and also on the registration form if you're interested.
Great. Well,
Thank you.
thank you very much. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on to our discussion action items. Instructions to the public. Speakers wishing to address the board on agenda topics are permitted 3 minutes per topic. Total time granted for public input shall be limited to 30 minutes per topic. The board policies require that public presentations to the board comply with certain procedures, including items 2 through 4 listed in oral communications. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move on to 12.2, which is approval of proposed board policies and board bylaws update, May 2016 revisions, first reading.
I make a motion to approve and waive second reading.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Okay, thank you, motion carried. Move on to our next 12.3, special education restructuring proposal presentation. I need a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Dr. Stowe.
Thank you, President Deutsch, members of the board. It's my pleasure to share with you tonight the culmination of what has been almost a year-long process in looking at our special education department and being able to be comfortable coming forward with you to recommend restructure. As you know, back on March 21st, Pam Branch, our Director of Special Education, as well as Dr. Michael Jason from the SELPA director, did a presentation. And we had identified a number of these areas and provided you with some information in what was about an hour-long presentation about special education. We went through IEPs and discussed the continuum of services and different programs that we offer here in Torrance. Talked about some of the laws relating to special ed and numbers of students who qualify based on different disabilities. Looking at the federal legislation around free appropriate public education, and that we need to meet those, and then also identifying the challenges that we're facing in what is a moving target in the landscape of special education. When we look at special ed costs in Torrance, it's about 25% of our budget. Roughly $52 million was spent last year on in special education, which is a tiny fraction we receive from the federal government based on federal law back in the 70s. They said that states would receive 40% of the cost for implementing these federal laws. Well, in reality, it's less than 10, and so
And it has never hit 40.
Never.
Once.
No, and we're faced with a tremendous deficit that's a burden on the general fund in order to do this. And in all the work that we've done in working with School Services of California, as well as other organizations, The estimate is that special education costs will continue to grow in the state of California at roughly 9% per year. So, so knowing this, you know, we needed to really look deeply at our program and identify some recommendations. Additionally, we have increased litigation and filings based on special education services, and we are not unique. This is happening across the state. We're also looking at school site staff needing additional assistance in implementing IEPs and writing IEPs, teaching students with disabilities, and ensuring proper placement. Just some numbers so that you can see how we relate. TUSD, these are 2014-15 numbers. 13.63% of our students are have IEPs. The state average is 11.31. And then a couple of our local districts there, you can see Palos Verdes is as low as 9.9%, whereas Redondo Beach is a little bit higher. And so, you know, our target is the state, right? If we're at the state average, we're where we need to be. And we're 2.5% above the state average of students identified for special education. And we can spend a lot of time going into the why, but we've really identified some of the key needs in this area over the course of the past year that we really need support with. Number one is support with compliance and filings needing to be separated from educational programs within special ed. And so what occurs is we have mediations and hearings, and our special ed staff, program specialist, director, special ed, are tied up 2 to 4 days a week on average, doing either hearing prep or actually in mediations or hearings. And so that does not allow them to focus on the schools, on the students, and ensure that teachers and administrators at the local schools are providing the support that they need to implement IEPs. Second identified need is the supervision and expert oversight of specialized programs and personnel. So, for example, occupational therapy or speech and language pathology. To have someone that is an expert as a coordinator to oversee those individuals providing those services, and then in consultation with the principals at the schools to make sure that services are provided. Monitoring staffing levels is also another area that we need to take a close look at to make sure that student needs are being met and that we're adequately staffed. And then finally, well, not finally, looking at technological solutions to monitor data and timelines. That's something that has been brought up as an issue. And then recruiting and retaining staff. We have, you know, some turnover within special ed, and by creating some positions in there, it will give opportunities for people to stay here in Torrance, to use their expertise that we've you know, help them gain to improve the school district. And so I present to you here an organizational chart. All of the gray positions currently exist. The 2 pink positions are included in the local control accountability plan through supplemental funding. Those I'm not going to go too in depth with, but I'll touch on them. And then the 7 green boxes are new positions that I'm proposing that would come in the form of base grant dollars. So you can see there on the left the 4 vertical green boxes. That would be our compliance division. That would remove all of the compliance, litigation, filing, hearings from the program side of special education and allow the staff there to be able to address those. The green boxes underneath the special education director would be coordinators, so 3 administrative positions, 212 days, similar to the position that you approved tonight for Dr. Gargas. And these would be coordinators based on specialty expertise areas. For example, one coordinator will focus on elementary, preschool, elementary education. One would be focusing on speech language, services that we provide to students, occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech language, as well as our non-public schools and non-public agencies that we contract with to provide services. And then the other coordinator would deal with secondary and transition. You can see that the assigned program specialists would work directly underneath those coordinators to help ensure there's consistency throughout the program and continuity in the services provided. So here I'm breaking apart so you can see a little bit better each of the areas. So these 4 new positions, again, would all fall within compliance. They would work primarily with our legal counsel in ensuring that we are represented in hearings and filings, that we're working directly with school sites to get the necessary documents and paperwork that we need in order to provide those to opposing counsel and advocates who seek that information. So we've got a director of compliance, a coordinator of compliance services, a legal administrative assistant, and then a staff secretary to provide support to those 2 administrative positions. This, by having 2 administrators here.
Mrs.
Yes.
Reagan has a question.
So, can you differentiate those, sorry, I didn't put my mic on. Can you differentiate, it looks like we've got administrator on top of administrator on top of administrator. Can you differentiate the director and what they would do versus the coordinator and what they would do?
Sure. The director would be a 12-month position. The coordinator would be an 11-month position. The director would be primarily responsible for hearings and settlements and working with legal counsel, making sure that what we're doing across departments is within the law. The coordinator, kind of think of an assistant principal. They're really going to be the one working directly with school sites and principals, doing training for identify areas that we need training on. So, for example, we recently had a settlement with on a case where we needed to provide training for all administrators in the district that deal with students, and so that's something that this person would provide. We also have multiple hearings on the same days. So the Office of Administrative Hearings and mediators, we've got the summer stacked up 2, sometimes 3 hearings per week, and so this would be someone that could represent the district in place of the director. There's a lot that's happening there, and also, quite honestly, in what we're facing in the next 2 to 3 years, we know these numbers are going to increase. Every district across the state, including the judges and the hearing officers, are all saying that the filings are only increasing, and they're doubling and tripling. And so I have no doubt that there's plenty of work that these 2 administrators would be involved in doing. Another area that this division would be responsible for is collecting data, because that is one area where it's all paper records. And so working with Mr. Mara, working with the school sites, the SELPA, how are we collecting and analyzing the data on where filings are coming from, what grade levels, what services aren't being provided? Because as it stands, we have to go through paper records, and I've had someone last fall go through about 4 or 5 years of records, just anecdotally just sampling files and just pulling them out and going through and trying to quantify, give us some idea of where these issues are happening. So if we see it's a training issue, well, then we need to address that. Much in a way, a risk management office would look at data on workplace injuries, right? So really collecting and analyzing data, that would be a big part of the role of these individuals. Here's Student Services Department, and I just want to highlight that because what we would be moving the psychologists and behavioral clinicians and assist specialists who deal with behavioral issues with students over to Student Services and out of special education. And the purpose for this is, number one, most districts are structured like this. Psychology and counseling is a general ed function for the most part. While the psychologists and counselors do a lot of testing and they manage IEPs at the school sites, it really is special ed function. And so they're general fund expenditures as well in our budget. And so putting them under Student Services with the coordinator of psychology and counseling really allows for that whole child, that discipline, the social emotional needs, the welcome center to address issues right from the get-go. When behaviors start occurring at schools with students, Mr. Pearson can work with those principals and refer them to the appropriate person here to try to mitigate those things early. And because he oversees our positive behavior intervention and support program that we're implementing, that it makes the most sense to put that here within Student Services. There are 2 positions on here that are in the LCAP that I didn't highlight in the presentation. One of them is a coordinator for parent engagement. This position would again be 212 and be 100% supplementally funded, and they would essentially be the first face that people see at the Welcome Center. They'll ensure that that experience is positive for families. In addition, working directly with principals on how to better provide engagement for parents at the school site. They will also work with our foster and homeless as a liaison there. Again, that is a function of our behavioral health clinicians in working with our homeless and foster youth as well. And so, again, we're looking at the whole structure and how do we most efficiently and maximize the services that we want to provide to parents and families in the community. And this is the structure that, again, we looked at many other districts and than ours and compared the 2, and we're going to be making that recommendation. And then finally here in special education, adding 3 coordinators, like I mentioned before, that will be experts and be able to focus on specific areas within their expertise with the appropriate program specialist staffing. And again, all the gray boxes are people that already exist. The only recommendations here would be 3 new coordinator positions to really help us, again, gather data, focus on training, oversee the specific specialties at the school sites to ensure that student needs are being met and that principals and teachers are getting the support that they need in order to implement IEPs effectively. So the cost of this proposed restructure, 1 director, 4 coordinators, 1 legal administrative assistant, a staff secretary. We have a coordinator already in special ed. We would extend that school year or that work year for that person by 9 days to match the other coordinators. And then also looking at a slight upgrade of one of the clerical positions that already exists. Total of 7 people for a total of $867,000. And again, looking at what we need to do to provide the services to students, the services to our staff that are out there at school sites trying to implement IEPs, and also take a risk management look at what we're doing we see that separating out the compliance and the litigation and the hearings from the program side of special ed is what will help this district move forward and provide the best services and hopefully eliminate a lot of the issues that we have out there.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Stowe. Any questions? Mrs. Reagans?
Yeah, actually, I spent a fair bit of time with you talking about these arrangements, and still in looking at it, and I know I voiced this to you, that's a lot of coordinators and directors and not too many people with feet on the ground working directly with the students, it seems to me. For that same price tag, we could get a bunch of teachers.
Well, but that's, we need people to coordinate and manage and supervise.
We also need people with feet on the ground, too, though.
Yeah.
We have a lot of needs, actually.
And provide the training and the support. And so, again, sure, the needs are endless, right? But we have a finite budget in which to work with. And in analyzing 10 or 12 different districts, as well as working with the SELPA on the kinds of structures and the kinds of things that they're seeing that our district is having issues with. We're higher than the state average in the number of students identified for special ed services. We've gathered all kinds of information. Dr. Kim spent a lot of time going through data on, from the school sites, how many students qualify for special ed based on how many are tested. That there's just a lot of inconsistency from site to site, and that the end result of that inconsistency is parents talk and teachers talk and things are different, and then
More litigation.
2, 4, 6 years down the road we end up in litigation.
Yeah.
Because we're not staffed in a way to effectively implement IEPs consistently across the district and provide the proper level of service.
Well, yeah, and I'm well aware that we pared back over the years the number of folks that were actually in managerial positions. So I actually do see the need there also, but it does look a little top-heavy when you're looking at this reorganization at this stage. But I know we'll get down to the different levels as we go. Thanks.
Okay. Mr. Stefan?
Can I say something? Oh,
Sure, Mr. Wait. Turn your
Sure,
microphone.
Mr. Lee.
Hi, am I next, or I don't want to step on
Yep,
Mark?
you go.
No, go ahead.
I've watched this pretty closely, and we did have a rather long hearing. We certainly have been putting special ed as support for a while. I see this as a complete reorg to meet all the challenges that we face because, I'm in business for myself, so customer service means something. Well, if we don't provide the right level of customer service to the special need kids, then it ends up costing us more money in the long run. And I think, this is something that, unfortunately the federal government has given us the job and not the money, but I think it's one of the, it's one of those things you do because it's the right thing to do. And I think this reorganization will give us the ability to provide a higher level of service to that community, which is certainly growing within our district. And I think in the long run, at least I'm going to look at this in the long run, as something to see that we don't over-identify it. We provide the right services, more proactive, and we have a collaborative relationship with our parents, but we don't end up with litigation and those kinds of things. And I think this is the first big step that I think we've taken since I've been on board, and I'm really looking forward to really great things out of this because we're going to hire a bunch of new people into these positions, so we may get some new eyes to look at it and some new perspective on what the solutions to some of the issues that we have, and I think it's probably as good a thing as I've seen us do in a while, and I'm really looking forward to it. So thank you, Dr. Stowe, and thank you to all the cabinet people that were involved in it. I think this is great.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Lee. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on to Mr. Stefan and then Mr. Wormers.
Once again, thank you, and all the staff that worked on that, those spreadsheets you showed me and the numbers that I talked about, the discrepancies between school sites and identifying children that might need an SST or an IEP were really eye-opening. Oh, we may have lost them.
It's all right, give me a call back. He may not, yeah.
Right.
All right, well.
Maybe he'll call back.
Yeah, maybe he'll call back.
So I appreciate that. I look at this, years ago, Mr. Wormer used an analogy of school sites were ships at sea, you know, kind of with a captain, but this, I believe, kind of gives them a way of communicating with each other, whereas before, I don't think they had that, or the district had the ability to communicate with them in an effective manner. It is a lot of money. It is, it looks very, you know, top-heavy and stuff like this, but it's something, and I'm glad you brought up SELPA. You didn't just make this up. You had our program evaluated by the people who do these things, and this is kind of what you came up with. And so I'm with Mr. Lee on this. I think this should help us in the long run reduce the number of those litigations and keep people happy and not litigious because we've done the right thing. I think this has a great potential to go that way. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done in addition, you know, once this happens and get people come on board. I mean, policies, procedures, we have lots of things to clean up to ensure that consistency, so that it does provide that direction to individuals at the school sites.
Thank you, Dr. Stowe. Mr. Wormers?
Yeah, I'm going to repeat virtually the same thing Mr. Lee and Mr. Steffen said, but when you're up to your tail on alligators, it's hard to remember your jobs to drain the swamp. I think that's what you're trying to do here is solve that problem. So, and also a quote that I absolutely love, Dr. Stabler, is TUSD traditionally cuts away from the classroom. I don't know if you remember telling me that at West High, the first year I was on board. But that is part of what you're faced with here is for years, we've cut away from the classroom. We've cut in places like this in special ed where we can cut. We never had a student services department before. We do now. This is some very good things. And I couldn't agree with Mr. Lee and Mr. Steffen more. I think this is an excellent move. I agree with Mrs. Reagan that we could use more boots on the ground, but our budget precludes that. So I think this is a very good move.
All right, well, if we have no further discussion or input, we have a motion on the floor. Before we do that, thank you very much for this presentation. And I know there was a lot of work. It's pretty daunting, so thank you for pulling this together. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed, say no. Okay, motion carried. Thank you.
Yay.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on to the 12.4, approve the allocation of one-time funds in the amount of $14,700,000 based on staff recommendations. I need a motion and a
Make a
second.
motion, we approve.
Second.
Second.
Okay, Dr. Stabler.
Yes, thank you very much. As the board will remember in the presentation that I made tonight and a meeting that we held in March, the governor had allocated approximately $9.3 million in one-time funds for 15-16. And we held a meeting in March to talk about how to allocate those funds. Cabinet came forward with some recommendations, and then at that meeting, there were a number of other recommendations that were made. What we did, we took those total recommendations and came up with what we're calling, it's a combination of the 2015-16 one-time fund allocation and utilizing the $5.4 million for 2016 and 2017. I've given you a series of recommendations for the utilization of these one-time funds. And what they are, first of all, we have what we call capital projects. And those include paving and overlay of West High School's student parking lot, paving and overlay of the front student parking lot at Torrance High School, repaving of overlay and annex around the annex at Torrance High School, heating of Building D at North High School along with the cafeteria and the wrestling room. We also have a recommendation, as you know, our telephone system is very, very old. I know anytime Mr. Morrow needs to get parts, they go online and they buy them from used companies if we need parts for our telephone system. Student information system, again, is out of date. There's a list of data upgrades that would be provided to the IT department, and we're recommending furniture and equipment allocation per student of $50, and that takes care of about $5.5 million. The other $4,650,000 of the original 9.3 would be going for what we call future, designated for future one-time use, future use. And that's a recommendation because, as we've said, you know, there are issues with the budget. We have some other areas we need to identify in the area of facilities, that type of thing. Additional one-time fund recommendations that came out of that March meeting was, and this is a recommendation that the board made, was to increase sub-pay to see if we get a better sub-pool on Mondays and Fridays, to look at middle school workshop equipment, and some of our schools don't have workshops. They've gotten rid of their workshops for various types of programs, and I could defer to Dr. Dugal on what those programs are, but 3 of our schools don't have workshops anymore, and that they've moved those programs into other types of a program. But still, there'd be funding available for a special type of equipment for those programs. There was a recommendation at the March meeting that we provide hydration stations, which are, you know, water, so students can fill their bottles of water, and we have a recommendation to provide those at elementary, middle, and high school. There was a recommendation to provide musical instruments, various instruments, and what I did was get a recommendation, and basically what we're recommending is $20,000 per middle school and $50,000 per high school. We're talking about upgrading our libraries at $10,000 per elementary, $20,000 per middle school, and $40,000 per high school. One of the things that came out at that March meeting is the need for outdoor lunch tables. I did a survey of district-wide, and for a combination of outside lunch tables and inside lunch tables, we're recommending those be added to the allocation. And out of that, we would utilize the 16-17 one-time funds, and again, put part of that to these projects and part of it designated for one-time use, and out of that, we'd have a remainder of about $400,000. And so that is our recommendation of the utilization of one-time funds.
And I think these are very positive. These are items that we, by combining the 2 years, we are able to meet the needs that the cabinet had identified, and also the larger items that were brought by community or citizens at that meeting, that we can meet the things that they had indicated. And many of these items we have not done in many, many years, certainly not since I've been the superintendent for 11 years. So I see it as very positive.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Stabler and Dr. Mannon. I personally want to thank Dr. Stabler for pulling all of this information together. I know it was a daunting task, just based on the spreadsheets we were given, and the fact that you were able to be very articulate in the way you collected the data and the pricing. So I want to publicly thank you for that. I'd like Mr. Warmers and then Mrs. Reagans.
Dr. Dugal, I would assume, about wood shops?
Let me answer that question.
I just want some background.
Yeah, that one, we're recommending that the board approve the recommendation we provided you. That will take much more work because it's going to have to be equal across the board, yet some schools have no wood shops, while others are moving toward Project Lead the Way.
Right.
So and by the way, it's not only middle school, it's also high schools too. Mm-hmm. So what we're really requesting for you to do is approve that amount of money. The actual dollars and how those will be allocated will come back to you at a later date. Okay. Because it will require an additional amount of work with the principals.
Because my question my next question after someone elaborated was, do we have the enrollment? I mean, do we have enough students taking wood class? I know out of my generation, yes, but I'm an old
The
guy.
answer to that is probably no, and that's why, though, that the students that are taking those classes, we need better equipment for them. And also for the students who aren't taking those classes because their school doesn't actually have it, then they've gone to some other type of lab. So as I was saying, when I talked to both high school and middle school principals, I told them our recommendation would be for you to approve that amount and then go back to them, and then we'll bring you something at a later date on it.
Actually, in the high school, North High School has 4 sections, so they basically fund a full teacher. South High School has 2 sections, and according to Dr. McDowell, it's a very supportive program. Torrance doesn't have one because they don't have a teacher right now, but they do still have a wood shop. All 4 of the high schools have active working workshops as we talk. And then West High School has 3 sections. We've got 3 of the middle schools that definitely have active workshops. But as Dr. Mannon said, we have 4 of them that are using it for Project Lead the Way. And then we have 1 of them that's using it for STEM, and it
And they're
goes
just-
across the board. But yes,
Yeah.
we do have some very active, I think, positive
great.
workshop
But
programs.
it's all over, so that's why.
Yeah, and
we
they're
need
very
to take a
expensive.
lot
I
more.
mean, there's a lot of equipment in one of these rooms. They're a big room and a lot of equipment in it.
Well,
No-
there's,
no question.
primary thing is the structure for, they all require dust collectors and this type of thing.
Extra
And so
power.
those schools that have gotten rid of their workshop programs, we'd have to go back in. And that's why I say the amount here is only for tools and that type of, it's not for classroom or classroom renovation.
Okay. And my next question would be, Mr. Mara, the MDF upgrades, is that like across the board? Is it, you're talking about, I see here power, I mean, battery storage. What are we looking at for MDF? Because I had the luxury of walking all of our MDFs, and some of them are, you remember those early mornings we were out there
Yeah,
looking
but
at?
a lot of those were improved through the infrastructure upgrade. All of those were approved, and so they're now all in appropriate cabinets, that type of thing.
Okay.
He's doing some other things that he thinks are necessary.
Yes.
Thank you, Gail.
Mr. Mara,
Yes.
Don't overstate it.
could you tell me what an MDF is?
The main distribution facility.
Thank you.
So that's where, so you've got a school and they all have data drops in all the classrooms. So all those wires go to an IDF, an intermediate facility, and then all the IDFs feed into the MDF. So it's like a hub spoke model. So it's the primary hub for any site at the school. So what you'll have in an MDF are all the network switches, all the gear. And what we do need to do, because we're also, as part of the surveillance system that we're putting in, we kind of have to up the battery capacity because we have the network video recorders that are sitting in the MDFs. So we're installing, more battery packs into the MDF. The bulk of this cost, though, is for our data center upstairs on the 3rd floor. If you'd like a tour one day, come on by. But that's where we really need to upgrade, and we talked about this, Ms. Reagan's, the other day. We're putting in a new storage system, so it's the new 72 terabyte, which will consolidate our current storage, which is on different servers, on different racks, so we're going to pull it all together in one place. So that's the storage piece. And then buying a new compute system, so that's the Cisco UCS. It's 4 blades, 1 terabyte of data. So it's a bit of a monster, but it's what we need in order to, accommodate for all the growth and the added servers and services that we're providing. So
Ask him what UPS is.
What's a UPS?
Uninterrupted power supply.
it's the uninterruptible power supply.
It's
Thank
not
you.
a delivery.
It's a battery,
Thank you.
a lot of batteries. Yeah.
The
Thank you, Mr. Mara.
$1 million and $1.4 million for telephone and SIMs respectively, those are numbers that
They're
are
just
kinda
estimates.
just estimates?
They're
Okay.
estimates, yeah. The best I could come up with, knowing the number of phones we have in the district.
You've done
and
this
just
before?
based on the experience I had from an RFP I did before, but again, without doing a full assessment of the entire district and knowing the condition of our wiring, closets, all of that, the $1 million was my best guess.
Okay.
Same with the student information system.
Okay.
And that RFP went out last week. So for the SIM, for the new SIM, and I've been responding to questions of the vendors who are interested in putting in proposals. Proposals will be due on I believe it's the 29th. They'll be reviewed and scored. Should be interesting. So.
You just gave me sweaty palms. That's really cool. I didn't realize we were that far along. That's excellent news. Having been very familiar with SIMS during creation of SBA, man, is it an old and tired program.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's, I think, all the questions I have.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, Mrs. Reagans and then Mr. Steffen.
Thank you, Mrs. Deutsch. I actually had some questions about the sort of blank spaces on your tables survey.
Yes.
I'm just concerned that it's incomplete, and when people realize there's actually potentially money for tables, they're going to say, hey, I didn't get my numbers in here.
What I asked for was, remember at the meeting in March, they were telling us how terrible those tables were at Jefferson.
I do.
And so what I asked was, please do a survey of tables at your site that are in disrepair, because some of them actually, our maintenance operation guys can go out and do a good repair on them. They put in new wood, or they put in new metal, they paint them and everything else. So what I asked were those that were in disrepair, both inside the cafeteria and outside, because, we have both types of tables. We have the tables outside, the type of picnic tables, but inside we have either the type that roll on the wheels and or go up against the wall. I asked for both of those, and I asked for tables that basically were broken or in disrepair beyond that. And this is what I got back from all of the sites.
So, for instance, Arnold, that's blank all the way across, means you didn't get a response for them?
No, I got a response, but they didn't have any issue on it.
Well, there's zeros down here for a bunch of these, though.
Yeah, but you
So-
got to understand, the Arnold PTA bought a whole bunch of tables.
Well, but then, wouldn't it be zero?
No, I got a response from everybody.
Okay.
Some of the other people can tell you, I'm a little bit of a pushy when I don't get a response, so.
I just anticipate that is going to be the response. I mean, eventually.
I did
They're
get a
going to say, oh, you're
response.
buying tables, wait a minute, we really didn't know you were going to do that. You were serious about it, or something to that extent.
I went back and I asked, sent it a couple times and asked, please give me the tables that you feel you need, and these were the tables that they felt they need.
And UConn said none?
They got new ones.
I've seen the tables at UConn.
No, but they got some new ones through PTA too. I think
Okay.
PTA has bought a number of tables.
Okay. And actually, my other question has to do with conversation I had today about the additional one-time fund recommendations. Number one, the increased subpay on Monday and Friday.
That came from a discussion with the board.
I do remember that discussion, and actually, the discussion I had today was with somebody who is extremely well-versed in sub-issues and what might be potentially helpful, and that individual said, well, are we set on that, or I have some other suggestions I think might be more effective.
Well, I think we are set on that because there's no data saying yes, there's no data saying no. It's an idea. We're at a point where we have some one-time money we can use for that purpose, and so we are set on that. If there are some other types of suggestions someone has, Dr. Liberati is more than happy to listen to it. So
There was just concern about the unintended consequences with upping the rate on Mondays and Fridays, and then what happens Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
well, remember, this is a pilot program.
I do, but I also understand that we were intending to pilot it for a year, which is a long time.
Because at different times of the year, there are different reasons for Monday and Friday. So that's the reason why Dr. Liberati went with the 12-month period.
But if we see a problem at some point,
Well, if we see a
nearer in the future.
If we see a problem, we certainly can bring it back. But
That we can just sort of keep an eye on that, because we will have
Dr. Liberati.
good data on our sub-stuff now. that we're having
Absolutely.
the
And Dr.
automated
Liberati
system,
is looking
so,
at all those numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are bringing in ASOP, the automated subsystem, but I also look at numbers every day. So if I see something that's really going amiss, of course, I'll bring it up to Dr. Mannon, and we'll take a look and see why it's happening. If there's an unintended consequence that's coming up,
we'll address that as soon as we can, before we get into the busy year of end of October, early November.
I just wanted to validate that from the person that was talking about it, because she has a lot of experience and says, well, you know, that might work, but this is what I've seen happen there, and there's lots of other possibilities that could perhaps create maybe even better consequences and results for us.
I
So,
just don't think we know.
yeah.
None on this.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Steffen?
Hopefully a quick question on the wood shop and the schools. I get confused. Are we talking about those schools that do not have wood shops would also receive funds?
Correct.
To
That's why I said there need, correct. That's why we need to work.
So you're spreading it out equally and equitably.
Exactly. That's why there's more work with the principals that's going to be necessary on that.
Thank you. Just wanted to make sure I understood that. Okay.
Okay, great. So we have a motion on the floor. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say no. Okay, motion carried. Thank you. Okay, we move on to the 12.5, which is approve the development of a District 711 committee to review and propose recommendations concerning lease of district property. I need a motion and a second.
I so move.
I'll second.
Okay, Dr. Stabler?
Yes, as the board's aware, I brought this to your attention a few board meetings ago. I received a letter from the Torrance Girls Softball League requesting permission to enter into a lease for this area of property that's on the west side of the Levy playfield. There's an area there that currently is open space. It's joint use between Levy, the softball uses it sometime, plus Region 12 of AYSO uses it. Right now, AYSO is using it for practice only. They play their games at other places. I brought it to you to see if there was interest. There really wasn't interest at the time from the board standpoint, and so I went back and actually entered into some communication with the AYSO Region 12 and with Torrance Girls Softball League. They met, and I got a letter from the Region 12 commissioner stating that they are not against the lease. They felt that there could be, they felt that things could be worked out in the area of practice, because that's all they're using it for it now. And the other issue was they felt that if it came to the fact that they had to play games, that they could work something out. It's not so much the idea of playing the games, it's the traffic issues that go on there when both of them are playing on a Saturday or both of them are playing on a Sunday. I had discussed with them about maybe setting up their schedules so one played on Saturday, one played on Sunday. And they said they would be, the letter I got from the AYSO commissioner was that they basically were not against the lease. So if the board is interested in leasing to this piece of property to Torrance Girls Softball League, then you need to basically approve that. And as part of this, you need to approve the development of what is called a 711 committee. 711 has nothing to do other than the number of members that the Ed Code says have to be on the committee. It says it should be between 7 and 11 members on the committee. The committee would be made up of parents, businessmen, teachers, classified employees, administrators. We had we did one, and I think Ms. Reagan's was the only one on the board at the time, because we had some leasing that never went on prior to my arrival. And so we put together a 711 committee and were able to bring it back to the board, and the board approved it. But basically what they do, they look at it, they look at what their current uses are, what the uses would be, and they would make a recommendation to you as to whether it would be in the district's best interest to lease this to Torrance Girls Softball League.
Thank you, Dr. Stabler. Mrs. Reagans?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for reaching out to the organizations and to the organizations themselves for actually taking it upon themselves to communicate and try to work out the differences. So it doesn't feel like it's a dogfight at this stage of the game, but that we're assisting both of them in coming up with a compromise. That's a great result, I think. I appreciate that. Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. Any other comments? Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Okay, motion carried. Thank you, Dr. Stabler. Okay, next item is approval of the Torrance Unified School District Torrance Teachers Association Collective Bargaining Agreement and the public disclosure of said agreement and adoption of the 2016-2017 Certificated Bargaining Unit salary schedules. I
So
need a
moved.
motion, a second, okay? Second. Dr. Stabler.
Yes, we reached a tentative agreement with Torrance Teachers Association to basically approve a salary increase that of 4% that will be effective July 1, 2016. It includes a $2,800 bonus per full-time equivalent employee and a $500 increase to their per year to their health benefit account. And the other part of that is that we would delay the rest of the negotiations until we enter into new negotiations in 16-17. We are recommending the board approve it.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Okay, all
Thank
those,
you for going through the process, but other than that.
thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Okay, motion carried. Thank you, Dr. Stabler.
Madam President, next three items are very similar, so you can take those individually, or you can take them all three at once.
I make a motion, we approve 12.7, 8, 9.
Second.
Second, okay. So
And
it's the same thing? Okay, so, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Okay, motion carried. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to consent agenda, approval of a consent agenda. As a whole, or do we have to pull anything?
Let's just go each one. I'll make a motion to approve general function consent items.
Okay, second?
Second? I'm sorry, I thought you did it.
Sorry, I need a
I
second.
thought so too, and I
Okay.
realized, no, she
Sorry,
needs
I
a
can't.
second.
I need a second, sorry. Okay, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Okay, motion carried.
Want me to
Okay,
keep, you want me to
15.
keep doing that? I make a motion, we approve elementary consent items.
Can I get a second, please?
Second?
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Okay, motion carried.
I make a motion to approve secondary consent items.
Second?
Can I pull one?
Yes.
Yeah.
16.5.
16.5.
I make an amend that a motion to approve 16.1 through 16.4.
Okay. Can I second? Can I get a second, please?
Second?
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Okay,
Making a motion to approve 16.5.
Okay.
Second?
Thank you, Mike.
Okay.
Mr. Warmus.
And I just wanted to revisit this once again, that Justin's is going to be providing this service at our expense. I don't know how else to say it, but, and just to, there's always a lack of clarity amongst the parents as to understanding the arrangement and exactly how it works for their students. Would you mind elaborating on it, Dr. Dougal, just to be clear, that it's going to be money out of our pocket if they bring the gowns back? I just want that to be,
So for both middle schools, schools have the option of participate or having students wear gowns or not. 5 of our schools have gone through the stakeholder process and will be using gowns for the ceremony on Thursday. And the other 3, through the same process, have decided to not use gowns. Those schools that are using gowns, students have the option to purchase gowns with their own funds, or they can quote-unquote borrow the fund or borrow the gowns. And so how that works is parents will pay a deposit, usually between $18 and $20 based on the quality of the gown and which ones are chosen by the school, and then can return the gowns and get their money back. And then that Justin bills us the cost for those gowns, and so we pay for that. At the high schools, all of our high schools do use the gowns, and they have the same agreement as well. They can either purchase the gown and keep the regalia and the gowns, or They can borrow the gown with the deposit. They get their full deposit back once all of the regalia, including the gown, tassel, cap, are all returned.
Okay. But the
And
parents,
the district picks that up.
right.
And the district once again picks up costs for any gowns that are returned.
And they
Okay.
keep the deposit.
The students get the families get the deposit back, yes.
So the families can get their deposits back, but if they return the gowns, then the district pays for those gowns.
That is correct.
Okay, just wanted to be clear about that. That was all. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who does that kind of work?
New business model for you?
Like other companies?
Yeah, somebody we can go and say, hi, we're going to deal with so-and-so instead of Jostens anymore? Can we go-
So we looked at another company as well, and they operate very similarly. Most of our schools, except for one, has been using Jostens as their primary gown company.
I mean, it's just the most brilliant business model known to mankind. You get money no matter what you do.
Yeah.
Only thing better is a drug dealer.
Hey, dude.
Thank you,
It's
Dr.
9:30,
Dugal.
so we're a little tired. Okay, thank you, Dr. Dugal. Any other questions?
No?
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Okay, motion carried.
I'll give it a shot. Make a motion to approve all educational service consent items.
Second?
Okay, thank you. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say no. Okay, motion carried.
I make a motion to approve human resources consent items.
Second?
Thank you. All those, I'm sorry, I'm a little tired. All
Aye.
those, okay, thank you. I'm getting a little tired. All those opposed say no.
I make a
Okay, motion carried.
I make a
Thank you.
motion to approve administrative service consent items.
Second?
A lot of
All
stuff.
those in favor say aye. Oh,
Aye.
wait, Mrs. Reagan's,
Which one? Mrs.
You're
Reagan?
doing great.
you're okay?
Aye, okay, it's the next one, huh?
No, it's getting too late.
It is.
Okay.
Okay, so, I'm sorry, Shelley. All those.
Do we have a second on
You have a
that?
We have a second.
Okay.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say no. Okay, motion carried.
Are
Thank
there any
you.
questions about the bond issues? No, that was a consent. This is administrative service bond consent. And
Yeah,
I make a
don't like
motion to
change
approve
orders.
administrative service bond consent items.
Yes.
Fix that.
The change orders we're seeing are a product of the not being a lease back.
You are correct.
Right.
Let me say that very clearly, so if there's like 3 people watching us on TV, the product of the change orders are the fact it's not a lease back.
Yes.
Although none of the change orders seem to be really exorbitant. I read through all of them.
They're all small.
There was actually a return. Someone actually gave us money back.
That's really nice.
They're bucking for points with you guys, aren't they?
God, it wasn't worth the... Feel sorry for that.
We didn't do that
I know.
out of the goodness of their heart. but-
Ah, okay, very good.
I'm sure
Very
Mr.
good.
Stabler. Okay.
Would you second that then, Mr. Wormers?
Mr. Orr?
I'll second that,
Okay,
yes.
thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say no. Okay, motion carried. Thank you.
Sorry, guys.
Yes. Okay, so we move on to information, board calendars for your information only. Revisions to administrative rules and exhibits, May 2016 revisions. Again, it's public information only for, I guess, board, transmitted to the board for information only. Comments from board members. Mrs. Reagan's.
Yes, sorry.
No
I
problem.
didn't have my mic turned on. Thank you, Mrs. Deutsch. I'll try to be brief. We did have our meeting for this month, and just to let you know what a problem it is to have members from different school districts in the JPA on this board, in order to find a day and time when we could meet as a board, it was at 8 o'clock Monday morning, which is not our normal meeting time, but at least we're all flexible and be able to find some time when we can meet, because they had the same need to have a meeting to approve their budget that we do. So they did give commendations to all the members of their business office. They've actually done a significant amount of reorganization of their business office, and they've combined job descriptions for some of their individuals, so they actually have reduced some of their management, which is a definite step in the right direction in terms of containing costs. We did approve their working budget for the coming school year. It consists entirely of a $1.4 million CTEIG grant, and then $2.8 million from the JPA districts. We're each kicking in that much to pay for our individual students that are attending the actual center classes, which is about, you may be able to add that up, $4.2 million grand total to run the center for a year. So we'll see if that, how that works, and we'll be monitoring that. The interesting piece of business that came at the end was consideration of establishing a board subcommittee to address the future of SoCal Rock. We discussed this as to whether we wanted to discuss the future. They all just assume there will be one, and I hope there will be one, but considering the sort of paltry funding that's going on at this stage of the game, it's going to be sort of limping along for a while. But we did decide that it's worthy of discussion. It may be a few years late and a few dollars short, Dr. Manning, but I do believe that we probably shall participate in some way in that process. I don't know how they're going to be determining who will be members of that committee. I do know someone who does not want to be on it, and it's not necessarily me. I said I would do it, but I generally have different ideas than the other members of the board, so I don't know that I would be a welcome person on that board, but we will definitely keep track of how that's going too. I expect it will be different people than were on the budget committee, but who knows what will finally happen in the end. And that's it for SoCal Rock. They are, by the way, holding a summer school for adults only that is supposed to be self-supporting, that if they don't get sufficient enrollment, the classes will not go forward. But we'll see how that works, too. I certainly hope it doesn't spend some of our dollars for the school year, let's put it that way. And I do have some classified employees to recognize. Shall I go on into that?
Yes, please.
The following classified employees have completed 10 years of accredited service and are eligible for an anniversary increment. Those are Jorge Barrios, Jessica Benvenisti, Carla Crow, Adam Gonzalez, Mariano Lopez, Jasmine Martinez, Sharon Smith, and Narkeisha Williams. Thank you for your service to our students and doing everything from being a diesel mechanic to health assistant, so and campus security too. Lots of different kinds of folks in that group. The following employees have 15 years of accredited service. I should say the following employee has 15 years of accredited service. It is a child development enrollment clerk at Arlington, Graciela Basso. And that is it. I hope everyone has a wonderful graduation ceremony. Please be careful around our stadiums and our schools as those are happening this week. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Reagan. Mr. Staffen?
Well, just real fast, there was a lot of stuff in tonight's agenda that represented a lot of work by a lot of people. I know I got the LCAP budget, we got the special ed total reorganization, we had the one-time dollars that were spent, we had negotiations on both, just for the unions, if you guys are still out there, but, you know, the amount of work that is. Judy, Chai, and Don getting the budget together, getting the committee together, letting us know what to say, that kind of stuff, and then getting this thing typed up. Shelley, thank you very much. That was
Yes.
a long agenda. So I just want to thank staff for all the work that over the year or more they put into some of the items on this. So.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Staffen. And I guess, Dr. Stabler, this is like your last meeting? No, he's got one more. Okay, great.
1.5.
Okay, good.
1.5. You got to do the construction meeting, then we got the little.
Oh, that's
meet,
right, the
so it's
little
like
one.
Come on,
1.5.
we're working on one,
That's
right?
right.
We're working on that one.
Okay.
I think Mr. Lee's phone went.
Mr. Lee?
I-
Okay. Okay, well, thank you. All right, well, if there's no further business.
I have one
Oh, okay,
quick
Mr.
question. The charming lady's no longer with us, very enthusiastic, very charming. Can someone tell me about behavioral health services? What is that, and what are we doing there? I didn't
So
want to
at
be rude to her.
the November 2015 board meeting, it was actually part of the secondary
Oh, I remember that.
Yes, and so
Seriously?
It was,
Yeah, so it was, I let you know that it was used as also a preventative measure for drug use, so it wasn't just for students that say were, suspended for use or this was a proactive measure for our students. And so the 3 schools that participated really wanted to get students involved. And one of the pieces is there's a 10-week session. And like she said, at the end of the session, they put a program together. And so these students become somewhat ambassadors for their school and spread the messages.
Okay, very good. Thank you. I didn't want to be rude and ask her, who the hell are you? But thank you. There's a whole bunch of stuff up here that I don't seem to always track on. But one thing I do remember is Dr. Stabler's almost done.
I know. Okay, so
almost.
if there's no further business, I'd like to adjourn in memoriam of retired teacher and coach Mark Jerry McIlvain and retired teacher and coach William Bill Dickerson. I adjourn this meeting.